They pay a lot of money to have a really heavy jacket that they then walk to work with. It's kind of weird. Well, I am going to a game with him tonight, so I'm gonna say overrated. Portion sizes are pretty good, which is not something you can say about every country. Hey, what's up guys? I'm Leffen, and I'm known to have a lot of strong opinions, so today we're gonna give a lot of those. We're gonna play over and underrated, and yeah, let's go. Overrated by those who love it, at least. I'm not into K-pop, even though I'm like half Korean. My girlfriend used to be into it a little bit, and now I'm like, I don't know. To me, the whole industry part and the fact that I don't love listening to it makes me like, I kind of don't even want to try that hard to get into it because of, you know, the industry and everything you hear about it. I have not played League. I have barely watched League, actually. This is like a confession. Like, yeah, I know TSM's big in League. I used to watch like the Esports a bit more, but after a while I realized that the game changes so quickly that unless you're really into League, it's like, I really don't even know half of the champions, and it's so meta-based that like, in Dota, it's like, well, you're kind of not supposed to know all the heroes because they're all so different, but in League, it's like, oh yeah, it's like understood by the commentators and everyone that yeah, this hero is really strong here, and like, you're supposed to know this because half of the matches this season have all had this. I would say it's overrated, but I also think people underrate it when they talk about like League as a, you know, how toxic it is and stuff like that. Like, I think every team game is just toxic. I don't think it's particularly League. Dota 2 is such an underrated game. Like, Ice Frog and how the team balances it and how it develops, like, it's so cool. And like, it's, for what it tries to be, it's like a perfect game, but because you can't play it online because the, you know, team games and like, because Dota 2 is so complex and so freeform, you can like play so many different roles, and role queue and stuff like that doesn't really work because of that. It becomes a very toxic like gameplay experience because, well, you might just run into a team where like the team does not have set roles, and so it's super hard to actually play a decent game. And because the games are so long, that makes for a really dynamic like tournament environment or a serious environment, but you might sit down and play for 1.5 hours and then, you know, someone has to go or they throw, and it's really bad when you have to play that long and then be subject to some 12-year-old internet kid raging at you. I would say by the people I hang around, I would say it's underrated because so much of like internet culture that you experience on Twitter originated on TikTok. So many people just, oh, the TikTok, oh, the Zoomers, but like, you also realize that like, a lot of the things you watch on Twitter is just TikToks, but posted on Twitter like a week later. So overall, I would say underrated. I would say tier lists are underrated overall, not because they're accurate, but they're not really supposed to be. To me, tier list is just like, if I watch a tier list or if I do one myself, it's just like, I'm just gonna talk about these things, and like the list is just a way to like organize your thoughts. But a lot of people do use tier lists as they skip to the end and they look, oh my God, this thing is placed over this thing. And I mean, in that way, like, yeah, they suck. ARMADA, I would say overall now is underrated. It's very hard because I think that's always gonna happen when anyone retires and the game doesn't outright die or stop existing, you're eventually just going to be forgotten to the sands of time. Like, the same thing happened with Can. You know, it's just gonna happen. And especially now with Melee, where we know, because of all the improvements in Slippy and Uncle Punch and everything, like, we know that people in 2016 would have no chance against us in 2021. So because of that, it's like, even though his record was amazing, people think, oh, well, you know, he wouldn't be able to do it today. I think he could definitely still do it. You know, he would have to prove it. So overall, I would say underrated now because, you know, he does look dated if you look at the videos and people don't remember how impressive it was for the time. But I can also understand why he's rated as he is. Mango, I think there's no way you could ever say Mango is underrated because he has like a legion of fans that will think he is literally God. So I think I have to put him at overrated. But I still think he is maybe, if not the GOAT, he will become the GOAT, like, you know, literally a matter of time before he would pass ARMADA. Simply because, you know, ARMADA doesn't play and Mango is still one of, if not the best player right now. Fox is definitely overrated by like everyone that doesn't play Melee, because there's always all these memes like, oh, Final Destination, Fox only 20xx, like if we're just gonna reach the singularity point where everyone just plays Fox and you can just shine everything. Shine is a reversal, and in the actuality of Melee, like we don't really know if Fox is the best. Some people think he is, some people think he's the best if used with a secondary, some people, think he's third. I think overall, he's definitely one of the best. I would not main him if he wasn't. Just the fact that some people think he's like by far and away the best character, and there's no debate, there's nothing, he's just the best. I think that's only true if you play in a reality where humans aren't humans, that we don't make mistakes, we react and execute everything perfectly. I think Marth it's hard, probably underrated by many, but I think with how Zane is doing, he's pretty accurately rated, I would say. Like he's definitely one of the best. He's not like super dominant. He has matchups where he doesn't win super hard, but he probably doesn't have a real losing matchup, maybe only slight if anything. Jigglypuff is underrated, I think, because Hungrybox performed badly during Slippy, and then because everyone ties their opinion so close to how HBox is doing, that's the character, then people think, oh, HBox performing badly, this is because Puff was never good. But I do think that her role, like her place in the tier list, is probably lower now that we have Slippy and we can all get Puff practice. Whereas before, everyone was worse, you could practice less, there was less, the controllers were worse, and you could just not find a Jigglypuff. Like, we had to pay people, Puff players that were not that, they were not top 20 players, just to fly out, just so me and ARMADA could get Puff practice. Well, I am going to a game with him tonight, so I'm gonna say overrated. I don't know, like Ludwig's really funny, and I love his YouTube.
What about Ludwig? You guys know this guy?
Smoke's down.
Oh yeah, I like him. Oh, that guy's comedy.
Let's go! That's right! That guy is comedy!
His streams though, because they're so very clearly aimed at becoming a YouTube video, to me it's like, it's fun, but I would rather just wait for the video. And like some people just think he's the absolute best because he's he's popular with the kids and the Zoomers and everything. But I mean, I really appreciate like his work effort, and he's super smart. He really understands the environment of the streaming culture and the internet, and like, I wouldn't really say he's as funny as like say Slime. I actually think Slime's peak is higher, but Ludwig can just do it every day and not rage at the Zoomers as hard. I think anime is overrated overall. Like there's so much bad anime. I think a lot of people that got into anime or were really into anime, myself included, like I like the really good things now, but a lot of them are just get produced just to be produced, and there's too much bloat. A lot of the really cool things in Japanese culture and stuff like that, in my opinion, is like things that kind of offshoot from it or take a different spin on it rather than just do the same thing. Appeal to anime fans, because if something only appeals to anime fans, it's almost always really samey and mediocre. It's always set in high school. It's always like the same jokes, same tropes. Overrated right now for sure. It was cool for a while, and then it just became so overdone, and everyone kind of does the same thing with like, oh, I'm gonna have a little bit in the front and then some on the back, and I'm gonna have this type of shoe and this type of thing. And then it went from being counter movement, counter culture, and then it just became super formulaic and super corporate. I think techwear is, I mean, looking by the price, you would have to say it's overrated. It masquerades as functional wear, but it's actually just a look, and it tries to justify extremely high prices with, oh, it has water resistance and stuff like that. But the only thing people do with techwear is like they pay a lot of money to have a really heavy jacket that they then walk to work with, and then they take it off. But I mean, I really like the look, but to me, the price is like so expensive that it's like hard to justify getting really invested. It's very overrated if you just count like the brand. I don't think the name or the logo is good, and like seeing someone wear something that just says Balenciaga on it, it's like, it's kind of weird. It's not the type of brand, like it's not a Supreme shirt where you just wear Supreme and that's like the thing. But I think they're very interesting, and like they had a huge influence, especially like maybe 2-3 years ago. They like really paved it, like we're part of the new wave of like, oh, this is how every brand is going to try to look right now. So overall, I would say they're underrated. Swedish food is underrated, I would say, only because the traditional Swedish food is rated very bad, like surströmming and like, yeah, meatballs from IKEA. That's not really what we eat in Sweden. I would say we generally just eat kind of like normal European food, like Italian, French cuisine. And I would say like it's underrated because it's not that expensive, and if you go to most places, the food quality is very good. The problem is the seasoning and the flavors are like kind of mediocre, they're kind of weak. But if you find a good place, it's like good food quality, decent price, it's not gonna make you sick or feel bad afterwards. And the portion sizes are pretty good, which is not something you can say about every country.
Really? Any countries in particular come to mind?
You know, the one I'm in right now, America, has an issue where if you finished what you're given, you do feel bad, or you will feel bad at some point. It's underrated by everyone that doesn't own their own apartment. And then when you get your first place and you try to buy furniture, you realize that it's like really, really good because it's like the price is just ridiculous compared to everything else. If you're trying to get a sofa from anywhere else, it's just so expensive. So I think it's like, there's a reason why it's that huge. It's a reason why it's so iconic, because the price and the like look, it just works. You can have like half your home with IKEA, and then if you're really into furniture, you can do the rest with, you know, actual expensive things. But just the fact that IKEA sets the price point probably like saves everyone a ton of money when it comes to furniture. I think he's underrated, but I also do think that like recently I actually like the other parts of the gang more. Like I'm a little bit more into Bladee now than Junglee's latest record, but I was at a concert by him on Friday and it was a really good show. But yeah, you know, overall underrated for sure. CRTs are overrated. They're so overrated. Like people think about a CRT and like, oh, it's lagless. Oh, the image is so crisp. But then you play on one and it's like, oh, well, the CRT did not have working sound. It has a beeping, like it's beeping all the time. It's super hard to carry around. Every CRT is different, like size, and sometimes there's like screens cut off, all that things. Like it's good and it's easy, and in some ways it's cheap, but when you're trying to host a major and stuff like that, or you're trying to have a tournament standard, it's actually a lot harder, I would say, to have a consistent playing field and like consistent playing environment playing on a CRT than a monitor. Even if the monitor is slightly worse, I think with fixes and things we could make it better or equally good as CRT, and most importantly it would be the same experience. This is a tough one because the opinion of it changed so much throughout the span. It started out really bad and then it got better. But I think it's overrated now because people say, oh, it's a great game now, but like inherently it's still the same broken game. It's just like a lot of polish on a pretty base. I would say it's overrated, but that's because I love Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I think 3 is like just more fun, and especially like the character designs and the roster is just more fun than 2. But I have not gotten super into 2, and I do realize that it's probably the better like fighting game and test of skill. But I think for me, the fact that 3 is just like crazy, and even though it's dumb, I like it more as a team game. I would say by Melee players, it is overrated. By many others, it's underrated. Melee players, they play so much Melee, and it's an amazing game. I understand why you play it so much. But I also think that if Melee players tried other fighting games and tried other things, they would find that a lot of the things they like in Melee exist in other games, or are done very interesting in other ways. I don't see why you would play you play 1,000, 10,000 hours in Melee and then not try other platform fighters, other fighting games, because you know you love a fighting game, so why not try another one, even if they're not, one-to-one. All right, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think, which opinion was the most wrong, which one was the most based. If you like the video, like it, subscribe, comment, and stay tuned for more.
You can, yeah, there we go. And just kind of hold the disappointed look. Yep, there we go. Keep holding it. Sorry, it's gonna seem a little bit weird. Okay, now with like a kind of confused face.
Still.
Yeah, still thumbs up.